India, a land of rich cultural heritage, its people steeped in traditions of ancient and diverse faiths. Indian life, Indian art, and perhaps most of all, Indian architecture display the diverse panoply of significant and powerful symbols, expressive of the innermost life of the spirit of man. Symbols that unite man with his Creator. Symbols that have often separated him from his fellow man. "400 years ago, Shah Akbar, the greatest of the Mughal emperors, from his magnificent palace near Agra, dreamed of uniting all the diverse people of India under the banner of one universal faith. Well, I dreamed that stone by stone I reared a sacred fane, a temple, neither pagode, mosque, nor church, but loftier, simpler, always open-doored to every breath from heaven. And truth and peace and love and justice came and dwelt therein. But such a goal remained far beyond the reach of even the most powerful emperor. In 1880, Jamal Effendi sailed to Bombay, bringing the Baha'i faith, the teachings of Baha'u'llah, to the Indian subcontinent. The Baha'i faith, newest of the world's major religions, proclaimed the underlying spiritual unity of the diverse peoples and religions of humankind, the impending fulfillment of Akbar's dream, a truly universal religion. Through the next 100 years, the Baha'i community grew, developing the foundations of religious unity. The young Baha'i community longed to build a unique temple that all the people of India could recognize as their own. After a century of germination, a remarkable lotus-shaped temple has blossomed in the heart of India. Attracting more than 2 million visitors a year, rivaling the Eiffel Tower and the Taj Mahal, the new temple welcomes people of all races, all religions, all cultures, and all classes. It is the Baha'i house of worship, Mashriq al-Azkar, the dawning place of the mention of God. It is an achievement of the human spirit, marking the conclusion of the first century of the Baha'i faith in the Indian subcontinent. A new embodiment of an ancient symbol, this remarkable structure has been widely hailed as one of the most outstanding architectural achievements of this generation. The Times of London called it the Taj Mahal of the 20th century. Its design is a unique blend of today's most advanced technologies with traditional craftsmanship. In its structure is the labor and commitment of the people of India. In its concept is a unity embodied in a symbol that lies at the heart of India's spiritual heritage, the lotus flower. The temple itself reflects qualities of the community that built it, followers of Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. In just over a century, this young faith has spread throughout the planet, reconciling ancient religious beliefs with the knowledge and needs of today, proclaiming the oneness of God, the oneness of religion, the oneness of all humanity. The beginnings of the temple project go back to 1921, when the young Indian Baha'i community petitioned Abdu'l-Baha for permission to build a house of worship in Bombay. Abdu'l-Baha replied, "By the will of God, a majestic Mashriq al-Azkar will be erected in one of the central cities of India in the future." Eventually, a site was chosen near the southern edge of New Delhi. From the beginning, the project was infused with a spirit of generosity and sacrifice. Ardashir Rostampour, a coffee shop owner in Hyderabad, donated his entire life savings to purchase the land. It was later discovered that the land was part of an ancient village named Bahapur, which means the abode of Baha. In 1974, the world governing body of the Baha'i faith, the Universal House of Justice, called for designs for the first Baha'i temple of the Indian subcontinent. 28-year-old architect Farabor Sapa traveled to India in search of inspiration for such a monumental project.
I began traveling without any preconception, searching for ideas. I visited many places all over India, not for architectural research, but to search for a concept. I was hoping to discover some secret, to find a spiritual guidance. Symbolism has great significance in India, probably more than anywhere else I know. Everything has meaning, and every symbol speaks in a way to the hearts of the people. In a small city of India, I met a man, an ordinary Baha'i, who was heard that I am going to design about the temple and this. So he came to me, and he was curious about what I'm going to do and all of these things. And then for the first time, he mentioned to me the lotus. I was impressed by his enthusiasm, but the concept itself did not attract me. Yet, as I returned to travel, everywhere I went, I saw the lotus in front of me. I could not escape from this concept. I was seeing it everywhere.
The lotus, perhaps the most ancient religious symbol in this ancient land, springing from the beginning which hath no beginning. The early Vedas state that this blossom was born of the light of the constellations. Ancient Brahmanic myths identify the lotus as the first living thing to emerge from the primordial sea, the starting point for the evolution of all created things. In the Hindu epic poem, the Mahabharata, the creator Brahma is described as having sprung from the lotus that grew out of Lord Vishnu's navel. According to Buddhist traditions, the Bodhisattva was born from a lotus and is often portrayed seated upon a lotus pedestal, holding a lotus in his hand. Variations on this theme are common not only throughout India, but abroad from Java to Tibet, from China and Japan to Central Asia. It is a symbol of the universal Buddha, Maitreya, a sign of the manifestation of God. Buddhists glorify him in their prayers. Om Mani Padme Hum, yea, O jewel in the lotus. The lotus also finds expression in Zoroastrian, Christian, and Islamic traditions. Now, the lotus came to be embodied in the bold and creative design for the Baha'i temple.
All the people in all the religions, they have accepted lotus as a unique symbol of spirituality, purity, and it represents the messengers of God.
Mr. Sapa's drawings describe a remarkable structure. 3 rows of 9 petals, each spring from a podium, which elevates the building above the surrounding plain. The first 2 rows curve inward, embracing the inner dome, rising to 34 meters. The middle set of petals reaches more than 22 meters, some 70 feet into the air. The third layer curves outward to form canopies over the 9 entrances. The diameter across the entrance petals is 70 meters, 230 feet. The main load of the building is borne by 9 large archways, which frame the central auditorium. The main building is surrounded by 9 pools of water, whose shape suggests the floating leaves of the lotus. The central circular auditorium seats 1,200 people with the ability to accommodate an additional 1,000. The entire superstructure functions as a series of skylights, allowing light into the central hall the same way light passes through the petals of a lotus flower. The new temple in India joins the distinguished company of Baha'i houses of worship on every continent. All share certain design elements: the nine-sided structure, a central dome, interiors bathed in natural light, symbolic of unity and the light of divine guidance. Yet each is unique, expressive of the cultural heritage of its own area. Mr. Sapa's breathtaking design was readily accepted, but his unusual concept presented a formidable engineering problem. How do you create a large, structurally sound building that still captures the delicate natural form of the lotus? To tackle the problem of structural design, Mr. Sapa chose the Flint & Neal Partnership of London as structural consultants.
The most important aspect of the development of the design was hinged on the use of modern computing techniques. In 1978, when Mr. Saba and we first got together, that we had a new generation of computer software, which was vastly more powerful than anything we'd had before.
The architectural and engineering teams worked closely together over an 18-month period. Consultation helped them achieve unity between the design and structural requirements. The final design was almost identical to the architect's original drawings. Bold and daring, a lattice of thin concrete shells without supporting beams. Delicate, like an eggshell, drawing strength almost totally from their shape. Freestanding petals, complex curves and arches, utterly impossible to build without the most advanced technology. Yet Indian construction techniques are labor-intensive, with minimal equipment and time-worn methods. A leading British architect commented at the time, "To build such a structure in Europe would be extremely difficult. In India, impossible." At the site, work began early in 1978. Mr. Sapa shifted his office from London to assemble the construction team, assuming the additional role of project manager. The project recruited up to 800 people, most of whom would live at the site over much of the next 6 years. In an unprecedented move, the project established a school providing education and childcare so parents could work nearby without anxiety. The workers came from all parts of India, people of different regions, different languages, different faiths. Women workers removed hundreds of tons of earth and rock from the extensive excavations and carried the concrete from much of the structure. Each woman walked an estimated 21 kilometers per day, carrying as much as 20 tons of material in an 8-hour shift. Once the basement and podium were constructed, the 9 massive supporting arches were completed. Then the extraordinary process of creating the shells began. Construction of a shell structure of such size and complexity had never been attempted anywhere in the world, and many engineers considered it a practical impossibility. Architect, designers, and contractors' engineers conducted months of research and experimentation to find innovative approaches and develop workable new building techniques. Experimental models were built out of timber. Patterns were created for the formwork that would shape the cement petals. New concreting techniques had to be developed. For aesthetic and structural reasons, Mr. Sapa was determined to avoid construction joints in the shells. This required finding a way to pour the thin 13-centimeter shells up to 22 meters high in one continuous operation. This was more than 10 times the maximum height of pour recommended by the consultants. Pouring to such heights and compacting concrete in the narrow forms, which for some shells was no more than 7 centimeters wide and curved in 2 directions, posed the most formidable challenge. Months of consultation finally produced a complex plan requiring the precise coordination of some 300 workers at a time, working rapidly, precisely, and continuously for periods of up to 48 hours. In preparation, thousands of square feet of formwork were painstakingly laid out on precise geometric coordinates and fixed to a specially designed steel space frame. The outer formwork was then systematically numbered for reassembly and removed. The inner formwork, built to furniture maker's standards, was precisely aligned and sealed. The cage of galvanized reinforcement was carefully fixed in place. As concreting commenced, the outer formwork was put in position one row at a time. To compact the concrete, needle vibrators were threaded into pre-planned positions by workers standing on platforms 10 meters above the pouring level. As soon as the concrete reached the level of the outer formwork, the masons and concrete teams stepped back, and the carpenters rushed forward to fix the next level of the outer formwork. They had only 10 minutes to complete the task, lest the concrete begin to set. A supervisory team then quickly double-checked the reinforcement and forms placement, and the next level of pouring immediately began, repeating the entire cycle, step by step. With the coordinated efforts of hundreds of hands, the delicate concrete petals grew skyward. Meanwhile, teams of workers were systematically pouring over the steel frame, tightening any nuts worked loose by the constant vibration. This complex operation had to proceed flawlessly and without interruption through multiple shift changes. In spite of scorching heat, torrential monsoon rains, high winds, equipment breakdowns, and frequent power outages.
You can say 300 people are working at a time on these platforms, and they talk in 10 different languages. We came together and we worked like absolute members of one family. Working because you are living together, we are working around the clock. And every night, this concreting of these shells has been done in one piece, one go. 48 hours has taken to complete one of these shells.
The entire structure and scaffolding had to be covered with heavy tarpaulins to protect it from heat and heavy monsoon rains. To keep the concrete mix cool enough to set properly in the intense summer heat of central India, tons of ice were crushed by hand each day and added to the mix. The hundreds of workers developed a spirit of reverence about their work. Arriving workers often performed a brief puja or prayer before beginning their work. Together with the tons of dolomite aggregate and pure white silica sand, these workers poured something of the soul of India into the structure. As the shells were completed, the pattern of the lotus began to emerge. The inner leaves in groups of 3, the outer and entrance leaves in proper sequence to maintain an even loading on the structure. Once the outer and entrance petals were completed, work began on the final and most difficult part of the construction, the inner petals of the interior dome, a delicate lattice of 9 intersecting shells just 7 centimeters thick. With every step, every process, every day, the work of these hundreds of men and women met world-class standards. The inner surfaces were bush-hammered by some 100 workers harnessed to platforms at dangerous heights, removing a thin layer of concrete to expose the aggregate.
One can say easily its entire project is a handicraft because of all the items which have been done with the help of people that they are really craftsmen, like 400 carpenters at a time making 40,000 square meters of formwork, something like this, or bush hammering of hundreds of, you can say near about 9,000 square meter bush hammering with the help of chisel and sort of just a small hammer and chisel by hand. This sort of work, that feeling was develop that site, that everybody has something to contribute. And that was the spirit of teamwork that could really do this job in India.
This spirit of unity, transcending culture, race, language, and faith, was critical to the project during the long years of construction. The external structure was covered with Grecian marble from Mount Pentelicon, the same marble used on the Parthenon of ancient Athens and the monumental buildings at the Baha'i World Center. In Chiampo, Italy, some of the world's finest marble artisans shaped the curved marble covering. Using full-scale mock-ups and computer-controlled saws, the Italian craftsmen labored for 2.5 years to mold the marble to the subtle, elegant lines of the lotus. The marble was suspended over the concrete shells by stainless steel anchors, a cladding system never before used in India. More than 10,000 pieces of curved marble, each of a different size, had to be fitted together like the pieces of a giant three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. The challenge of the project produced story after moving story of great personal sacrifice, as Baha'is from throughout India, Baha'is from throughout the world often gave whatever they had to help the work proceed. In Iran, hundreds of Baha'is imprisoned for their allegiance to this gentle faith worked within the prison walls in order to be able to make their contribution to the temple project. To them was to go the honor of contributing the crowning jewel in the temple. On December 22, 1986, just 2 days before the final dedication, this centerpiece, bearing a calligraphic rendering symbolizing the unity of God, the unity of all religions, and the unity of all mankind, the name of Baha'u'llah was set like a precious jewel in the heart of the lotus. For Baha'is, such sacrificial acts evoke memories of the suffering of Baha'u'llah. A small cachet containing dust gathered from his shrine was cemented beneath the marble above the majestic archway facing the Holy Land. According to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, faith must be expressed in selfless deeds. For the Baha'i community, the completed temple stands as a witness to the spiritual oneness of all religions and to their commitment to build a peaceful and united world. Some 10,000 Baha'is from more than 70 countries flocked to the dedication ceremonies to inhale the fragrance of the lotus and celebrate their achievement. Ravi Shankar, India's world-renowned musical genius, composed music for the dedication. Architectural critics acclaimed it to be a major achievement, one of the most outstanding contemporary structures in the world, one of the most remarkable achievements of our time, as one of the masterpieces of the 20th century. Yet perhaps the most important reaction came not from the experts, but from the multitude of people of every religion, every race, and every nation who come to visit. Thousands come every day, drawn by the beauty, drawn as if by an invisible spirit, drawn to prayer and meditation.
भगवान बाहुल्लाह के संग्रहित लेखों से अध्याय 7। मैं सत्य कहता हूँ कि
The utterance of God is a lamp, whose light is these words. Ye are the fruits of one tree, and the leaves of one branch. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth.
Mashriq al-Azkar, the dawning place of the mention of God, the lotus of Baha'u'llah.